welcome to all the truth seekers that have joined us today. I'm glad that you've decided to join this online community and hope you're ready to inhale some provocative insights that will inspire and change the way you do business. My name is Mark McKelsey, and I lead the people and the projects that bring you insights, shopper trends, and next practices from Global Market Development Center and Retail Tomorrow. For the next hour, this Infocast will make your lunch hour profitable by demonstrating just how the curiosity and the power of the consumer must be at the center of your strategy. In other words, the way you've done things in the past is not the way your future success will happen. Retailers and brands, more than ever, must be adaptive and in constant flux in order to connect with evolving populations. So how you respond to this session is important. Without further ado, let's jump into it. I'm coming to you live from Colorado Springs and have Michelle DeKinder-Smith in Chicago joining me today from her office at Linkage Research. Today's Infocast is about how the CBD industry is important to health and wellness going forward and how retail can leverage it for upcoming consumer demands. Overall, the increasing awareness about the medical applications of cannabis have caused several mainstream retailers to adapt and start selling CBD-based products, and many countries began to adopt CBD-based products for medicinal purposes. The global CBD market is expected to grow to $20 billion by 2024, while registering a CAGR of 33.5%. Much of the growth estimated in the wellness market is a result of CBD's recently acquired status as a health and wellness product. With CBD, a third cannabis category, namely proactive wellness, is emerging. Supporters of CBD in a wide variety of products claim the compounds work on everything from headaches to aching joints, relieves anxiety, skin conditions, as well as relaxes and rejuvenates all parts of the body. Despite all the positive buzz around the CBD products, obstacles remain, and the regulatory infrastructure around such products is very complex. In America, most of the regulations surrounding hemp-derived CBD, especially as it relates to the consumer goods industry, and is the domain of the FDA, which currently states that it is illegal to market CBD by adding it to food or labeling it as a dietary supplement. The FDA also claims that some CBD products are being marketed with unproven medical claims and are of unknown quality. Early in 2018, the FDA approved one CBD oil, an oral solution for the treatment of seizures associated with two rare and severe forms of epilepsy. So there's a lot to unpack here today. Here to tell us more, Michelle, would you let our viewers know more what they can expect to learn today?
Absolutely, Mark. So I'm excited to be here today to share with you the consumer viewpoint on CBD and what their knowledge, awareness of the category is, what their trial rates are, what's the profile of the consumer who is using CBD today and how are they using it. And towards the end, we will be sharing plenty of recommendations and some real watch outs for both retailers and brands who are interested in engaging in this space.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. Before we get started and dive in, I'd like to remind our viewers that we could take questions during or after the session. Just simply use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Please don't use the chat button, but use the Q&A. That's where we'll be answering questions. And we'll get back to those at the end of this hour. So let's get started. Back over to you, Michelle.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. All right, so as we mentioned, today we will be focusing on the consumer viewpoint and perspective on CBD. So, my apologies, I'm trying to screen share. There we go. Okay, so as we begin today, for those of you who haven't had a chance to work with Linkage, just briefly, Linkage is a market and trends research company, and we have been helping clients to uncover market and consumer insights for the past 20 years. Much like the rest of the industry, our business has evolved to increasingly focus on the natural products industry and brands that are considered better for you by consumers. We run each month a market monitor with 1,000 consumers in which we're capturing the latest trends in the better for you and natural products space. And it's no surprise that CBD is very high on that list of trends that we are monitoring. The information that I will share with you today comes from that ongoing study about consumers and how they're engaging and behaving in the natural marketplace. As I mentioned, each month we ask consumers about a wide variety of topics, including their health and wellness practices, lifestyle diets they may be following, ingredients they're avoiding, and more. And over the past 9 months, we have interviewed over 3,000 consumers about hemp CBD. And the data I'll share with you is about that today, and it comes from research we conducted in third and fourth quarters of 2019. Where we always like to begin is understanding where the category stands within the consumer mindset today. And as we look at the data, we see that that knowledge of CBD is surprisingly high. CBD is still a very young category. So much has changed in our lives over the past 3 months. But if we take a step back and really think about this market of hemp CBD, it's only been federally legalized to sell hemp CBD for 18 months. So a very short period of time. It is a very young category that came on board with the 2018 Farm Bill. And given that it has been available to consumers for such a short time, awareness of CBD and understanding of it is startlingly high. What we see is that 9 in 10 Americans have heard of CBD, and 7 in 10 of them say that they are at least somewhat familiar with the ingredient and its properties. And as of October of last year, more than a third of American adults aged 18 to 75 had tried CBD. So it really has experienced explosive growth in a very, very short period of time. We're pretty confident that the number has increased, that the trial rates have increased even more over the past several months, and are in the process now of working on a study specifically about CBD trial and COVID-19. There's a lot of talk about how millennials are changing the American product landscape and the natural landscape. But what we see here is that trial of CBD actually spans all generations. It does, in fact, skew towards younger consumers, where we see a third of those in the Gen Z population and nearly half of millennials claiming that they have tried CBD. But it's also really important to note that older consumers are trying CBD as well. A third of those in Gen X, and even 1 in 4 consumers who are over the age of 55 have tried CBD. And all of this suggests that it's not a fad, but there's really something about this ingredient that has captured American interest, and people of all generations are using it. So I think the natural question then becomes, if it's spanning across all generations, who is the consumer who is using CBD products? What we find is that those who have tried CBD are really health seekers, and they say to us that they are in relatively good health. We have over a third of consumers now having tried this ingredient, and we see that regardless of their age, they consider themselves to be true seekers of health and wellness. They are actively looking for information and knowledge about food and nutrition. More than half, 60% of them, are following a lifestyle diet or a specific eating philosophy like keto or paleo. And by and large, those who use CBD consider themselves to be in excellent or very good health. Better health, in fact, than those who do not. But despite their overall good health, what we also see is that the CBD user is more likely to be dealing with a variety of health conditions. They over-index on the health conditions that you see represented here. CBD triers are more likely to say that they suffer from anxiety or stress, that they experience regular body aches or headaches, that they may be overweight, and that they struggle with depression. While these are also common among the entire population, CBD triers are over-indexing on these conditions, and I think it sends some clues about what they may be using CBD for. In addition to taking CBD for health and wellness, we also see that there is significant interest in CBD as an ingredient in beauty product. And I think that's because of this idea that consumers are really seeing CBD as an overall solution for health and wellness. Based on our study from last year, we saw that 14% of beauty buyers had purchased skincare with CBD. And importantly, there's a huge opportunity for growth here in this skincare arena because an additional 40% of beauty buyers said they would be interested in buying skincare that contained CBD. So this is definitely a huge area of growth to watch for, especially if you're in the beauty industry or retail beauty products. And there's a couple of reasons why consumers are so interested in CBD in beauty ingredients. First off, what we see is that the modern consumer, that consumer who is buying natural products and focusing on their health and wellness, is very quick to make a connection between their skin and their overall wellness. 82% of them recognize that their skin is an organ, and what they put on their skin has a direct impact and effect on how they feel. They recognize that everything they put on their skin can impact their health. And so for this, and many of them are therefore avoiding toxic ingredients and chemicals and things of that nature, and increasingly looking for more natural solutions for skincare. So for this reason, consumers believe that, that really the ultimate solution is to find natural ingredients that are effective, and that has led them to an interest in CBD in skincare. And in fact, we find that those consumers who are buying skincare that contain CBD are also buying products that have more natural attributes in the beauty arena, including products that are sustainable, that are organic, or that are marketed as plant-based or vegan. So what we're seeing is that as natural products continue to expand beyond food and more into personal care and overall health and wellness, it's becoming easier to find brands that have these attributes. And again, many consumers are actively looking for those products that might have CBD in them. We also have seen that 1 in 10 pet owners say that they have given their pet CBD. And what we can see in the data is that it is the consumers who have tried CBD themselves who are at this point that they are ready to introduce CBD as an ingredient to their pet. But in addition to the 12% who have tried, we see about another 1 in 4 pet owners expressing some interest in being able to give their pet CBD. So the question really becomes, what is driving the consumer across the board for health and wellness, for their own health and wellness, for their skin and beauty regimen, and for their pets to be interested in CBD? And simply put, what we see is that consumers are turning to CBD because they see it as a natural alternative to pharmaceuticals and traditional medicine. Consumers today want to avoid being on medication, and there's been a ton of research about consumers, and younger consumers in particular, actively avoiding going to the doctor and wanting to find solutions that help them do that. They are looking for those natural solutions. Consumers have become their own advocates when it comes to their health, and so they're actively doing a lot of research to find alternative modalities and approaches that can help them achieve their wellness goals. And what we found in our study is that nearly 8 in 10 consumers said that they would prefer to take CBD over prescription medicine, specifically for pain and anxiety. So CBD is heavily associated with health and wellness, but that's a more general way of thinking about things, right? What really impressed us when we talked to consumers about CBD is just how knowledgeable they are about this ingredient. We asked consumers to tell us what benefits they believe CBD offers. And it's startlingly high. The average consumer is able to name 6 discrete benefits of CBD. And those who've tried it are even more knowledgeable and are able to name 8 benefits that CBD can deliver. Chief among these is pain relief, but followed pretty closely by stress reduction, by CBD enabling them to better relax or to sleep better, to provide anxiety reduction, and 4 in 10 consumers saying that it helps reduce inflammation. So consumers really are seeing this ingredient as a natural alternative that can help them solve many challenges in their lives. When we look at this list of benefits, it's probably not surprising that many CBD brands are reporting explosive growth in their direct-to-consumer sales over the past couple of months, because we know that as a result of COVID-19, consumers are experiencing high levels of stress and anxiety in our society today. So the fact that CBD may be able to help them deal with the stress and anxiety of our current situation would certainly help explain why these brands are seeing such explosive growth. When we think about, when we look at perceived benefits of this ingredient by generation, what we see is that the younger generation, which is also more likely to have tried CBD as an ingredient, has a much more holistic, well-rounded understanding of the ingredient. While older consumers tend to focus more on CBD being for pain relief, younger consumers, over 50% of them, do associate CBD with all of the other items mentioned on this page. So it is the younger consumers primarily who are focusing on understanding CBD as a way to relieve that stress and anxiety. So how are consumers getting to know so much about this ingredient? I mean, as Mark mentioned at the outset, it's an uncertain regulatory environment where brands cannot talk about the product as a dietary supplement or included in food and beverage. Because the FDA has not published its guidelines yet, it's very unclear, and brands need to be super cautious about the claims that they are making. So consumers are not learning about CBD from brands. Where they are learning about CBD is from each other. This explosive growth in this category has really been a consumer-driven phenomenon. The category has grown so quickly due to word of mouth. And what you're seeing here is that of people who have tried CBD, over half of them have talked to their friends and family about this ingredient. And in fact, it's more than even just word of mouth. I like to call it hand to mouth, because 1 out of every 4 people who've tried CBD got their first trial product from someone that they know. Either a friend or a family member gave it to them. So we're in a situation where consumers are very passionate about this ingredient. They are looking to improve their health and wellness, and they're looking for natural solutions to do so. And so as they are learning about CBD and having a great trial experience, they're carrying that knowledge forth and sharing that information with their friends and family, both in person as well as via social media, where over half of consumers, or about half of consumers, have learned about CBD. And really the word on the street among consumers is that CBD is good for you. It does a lot of very good things, and it's highly recommended by friends and family. I mentioned that part of what's happening is that consumers are having a good experience with this ingredient, and by and large, that is true. Intent to repeat CBD is very high once consumers have tried. 3/4 of folks who have tried it say that they will repeat it, and almost everyone who's tried CBD has had more than one occasion, and on average at the time of this study, 70% of consumers had tried it more than 5 times. So it's not just that the trial rate is high, but the retention is high, and the velocity with which consumers are consuming CBD is very high as well, a high rate of repeat. As I mentioned, friends and family are a common source. We ask consumers where they're getting their information about CBD, and half of them say from friends and family. 28% have utilized a search engine to try to find information about this ingredient. Many are looking for product reviews. 1 in 5 say that they have used reviews to help them make product decisions. And then finally, 15% say that they're actively going to manufacturer websites to understand more about the products that are available in this space. So it's probably not surprising, because consumers have such a good handle on CBD, what it's for, what its benefits are, and they appreciate the fact that this is a very natural ingredient and alternative for health and wellness. Consumers, by and large, say and believe that CBD is a very safe ingredient for them to consume. And furthermore, they do understand that hemp CBD essentially without any THC in it will not give them a high associated with THC and cannabis. So they do totally understand that it's safe. And as counterpoint to that, over on the right-hand side, even among the 2/3 of consumers who have not tried CBD, it's not fear of safety risks or fear of stigma that's holding them back. Only 10% of non-triers cite these as reasons that they haven't tried CBD. Overall, most consumers who haven't tried it just simply don't think they need the benefit. They're feeling well, and they aren't seeking any of those solutions like pain relief and anxiety relief that we saw on the earlier slide. So for sure, consumers by and large do trust the ingredient very much. And that's why we say that all signs are pointing to continued increase in consumer interest in this category as the word spreads even more, and more consumers influence each other to try it. And we believe, that $20 billion category size that Mark referenced is well on its way, because consumers are showing in many different ways that they're going to continue buying this ingredient. We always ask consumers, we enjoy asking them their predictions, and over 6 in 10 consumers say that they believe CBD will continue to grow in importance. Nearly 8 in 10 said that their experience when they tried CBD met or exceeded their expectations, and 3/4 of them do plan to continue using the product. So again, all of this snowballing with increasing word of mouth towards the category continuing to grow at a very rapid pace. If there's one area, and this is the biggest opportunity that we see for brands and retailers to grow, is to help give consumers guidance to navigate the offerings in this space. Consumers tell us very clearly that they trust CBD, and they understand what the ingredient can and should be used for. But where they lack clarity is how to navigate the individual products that are being offered in this space. There are literally hundreds of offerings out there, thousands of offerings out there available to consumers, a wide variety of forms, a lot of very small brands that consumers don't have previous experience with, no clear guidance on labeling or standardization. And so consumers are struggling to figure out, all right, I trust CBD as an ingredient, but what are the brands I can trust in this space to deliver the benefits that I'm looking for? Common questions we hear consumers asking are, how do I understand which brands are credible? What are the dimensions I should use to compare products? What's the dosage that I need, depending on what my goals are? And then particularly when brands step outside of a health and wellness focus and talk about CBD from a different positioning or angle, they want to understand what are the benefits of using CBD if it's being offered outside of a health and wellness approach. Because the category is unregulated, there's a huge opportunity here to really help the consumer understand how best to use these products and how brands can be differentiated. And you see here that over 7 in 10 people who've tried the category agree that it's hard to know what products they can trust. So huge opportunity here. And because of that lack of clarity consumers have, and because they're trying to figure out how to navigate the CBD industry, what we hear them telling us is that they really are looking for mainstream retailers and for bigger brands to come more into this industry to help bring standardization and therefore give them that sense of trust and confidence in the brand themselves. There's been a lot of media about brands that perhaps are scams, that are claiming certain milligrams of CBD, and in fact the ingredient is not present at that level within the product, or sometimes not present at all. So they're really looking for big brands and big retailers to come help bring some structure to the industry itself. What you're looking at here is the percentage of consumers who want to be able to buy at these channels, but do not feel that they're able to do that today. So there's a big gap, particularly in mass like Walmart and Target, in Amazon, and in traditional grocery, for consumers who are looking to buy CBD in those channels and not being able to buy there today. So when you ask them where they're buying, many of them are going to a smoke shop or a dispensary because that is where the product has historically been distributed. But they're actively looking for mainstream retail to begin carrying these products. And the reason they do that is because these retailers are so trusted. They see that a store like, you see the quote here, they see that a store like a Target is taking care to vet products in advance. So simply because the grocery store or the Target is carrying the product, that inherently delivers some level of confidence and trust in it. We also heard that consumers see that big brands have a role to play here, and that by incorporating CBD into their products or new product offerings as an ingredient, the consumer can really trust them. And that's because they recognize that big companies have a lot to risk. And certainly they wouldn't do anything that wasn't well vetted and safe and that didn't work well because of the potential repercussions of doing that. And so there really is an opportunity for consumers tell us, for brands and retailers to help them navigate. And that will only further grow, help fuel the rapid growth of this industry. So as we mentioned earlier, this category is projected to become $20 billion in revenue by 2024. And so if CBD is a category that you have been thinking of getting involved in, we say that there's really no better time than now. Consumers are still working to figure it out. There is an opportunity to help create the standardization and bring new and plenty of space for new product offerings within the CBD space. So we think now is the time to understand for your particular customer base or consumer base, what is it that they are looking for in CBD, and how can you bring that to market for them? As you do that, we think it's really important to think about health and wellness in particular, and what your brand and or stores stand for. What we found, we talked to consumers qualitatively about a whole host of different product offerings in the CBD space. And they very clearly, as we saw earlier, associate CBD specifically with health and wellness. So we talked to them about what were the types of products where CBD felt like a much better fit. And what we learned is that CBD is a natural fit in the consumer's mind for categories that are connected to health and wellness, like capsules or tinctures, like wellness shots or pain creams, and even potentially for some beverage applications. The other thing to note about these types of categories is that, not only are they health and wellness oriented, but these are also categories that consistently provide clarity on the dosage that should be taken, and consumers understand how they fit in their lives and how much or how many times they should consume a product in a given day. What we also see, though, is the other side of it, which is what are the categories where CBD is not so much of a fit. And we did have consumers evaluate a couple of different products, and we learned that we saw some real watch outs for when you are thinking of introducing a product that is not specifically health and wellness focused. So what happens when brands step out of the health and wellness focus is that the consumer has the risk of getting confused. And some of the information we learned, for example, on the left, thinking about something like a protein bar or a snack bar that is infused with CBD becomes problematic for consumers. They don't necessarily understand how CBD fits with on-the-go consumption. If it's meant for relaxation, how does the idea of energy and being on the go tie together? We also found in the middle one, which is a popcorn that has hemp CBD in it, consumers have a lot of questions for snacking around control of the dosage. They want to know if it's a multi-serve bag, how much should they consume and how can they control their consumption, and how should they think about measuring the amount of CBD they may be getting when they're in a larger snack bag like that. And then finally, although earlier we saw a lot of consumer interest in skincare, there really is an opportunity to help clarify for skincare companies the specific benefits that CBD can provide when applied to the skin. So I think the watch out here is that if you are considering adding CBD to your product lineup and your brand is not naturally aligned with health and wellness, think about how you can deliver a product that is true to your brand, but ties to a clear CBD benefit and helps the consumer understand when, how, why, and how much they should use in order to get the benefit that they're looking for. Another watch out or piece of advice that we heard loud and clear from consumers is that because they think of CBD as a health and wellness product, it is really important to kind of take the high road and mirror that in your marketing and messaging and in your packaging design. What we found and heard again and again from consumers is that when brands try to take kind of a kitschy approach to marketing and trying to kind of trade on or rub shoulders with kind of typical what I would call drug culture, that's a real turnoff for many consumers. They want brands to really emphasize and mirror back to them the health and wellness benefits and not create confusion with products that may contain THC and have a psychoactive effect. And so, really in terms of tone and messaging, you want to stay clearly focused on health and wellness in both your design and in your claims and in your messaging. And that even comes down, of course, to how you articulate the dosage and the amount, the quantity of CBD that is in the product. We have seen in the marketplace brands that have chosen to put the entire amount of CBD in the total package on the front versus brands that, are really talking about the number of milligrams that you can expect on a per serving basis. So it's really important to get clear on how to articulate to consumers exactly what they can expect from the product and not try to trade on some of the more drug culture aspects of THC and cannabis. And finally, what we hear from consumers is that they really are looking for CBD to be merchandised with other products. So this is great learning for retailers. Rather than a CBD section of the store, consumers really believe that CBD products should be integrated into the main set. So in a skincare line, you might have a CBD offering right alongside of an anti-aging offering, or beverages that have CBD might be in the traditional refrigerated beverage case with other non-CBD oriented products. They also see that by integrating CBD into the regular set, it's an opportunity for the consumer to get educated, and they would be looking within that set for information and understanding of how the CBD offering compares and contrasts with other items that do not have CBD. All right, well, I hope this information has been helpful, and I would be delighted to take any questions.
Hey, Michelle, thank you for the Infocast. That was really great, and we appreciate your time and your insights for our audience. We do have a couple questions that are coming through. The first one is coming from Bradley, and he says, do consumers understand that if CBD is added to a product, that it may not have the original claims? And then will the consumer understand what those benefits are?
What we saw in the data, right, that we shared is that consumers do broadly understand the benefits of CBD. So I would say they will understand what the benefit ought to be. In general, the average consumer could name 6 different discrete benefits. So I think when you think about packaging specifically, you want to carry it through. So if your product is specifically for pain relief, as an example, make sure that your visual cues reinforce that property, and that will help the consumer understand how they might utilize the product. And that would be, I guess, not just visual cues, but also the form you tend to introduce as well, right? Like, are you going to use a balm or are you going to use a tincture? And how does that decision about product form help the consumer understand what the potential benefit may be? And Mark, when you see original claims there, how do you take that?
I'm not sure. To me, Michelle, I read the question a little bit like, if CBD is an additive, what does it do to all the other original claims? So if something's not just, say, a muscle relaxer, but it's going to do something else, fill in the blank, does CBD affect the other claim as well? That's how I read the question. How about you?
Yeah. I think that's correct. I think the caution is that if the other claims of your product do not feel like they harmonize with CBD benefits, that would be something you'd want to take extra care to communicate and explain. We gave the example of the energy product, for example. And we've heard consumers talk a lot about coffee and CBD, because CBD is both meant to be, it's perceived to be relaxing, but like many health and wellness oriented ingredients, it is also perceived to be energizing in that holistic, well-rounded, I am supported with day-long energy way, right? So it's not the caffeine hit kind of energy. And so when you think about the caffeine type of energy coupled with the more relaxed, sustained energy that a CBD might provide, how do you reconcile those two things? And I think that's where additional messaging and communication and explanation to the consumer may be needed.
Yeah, I think you're right. Some of those benefits may seem like an oxymoron to some consumers. How can an ingredient be a stimulant and a relaxer at the same time? So
right,
those type of
exactly,
properties.
and yet we do have talked to a lot of consumers who may add a few drops of tincture to their tea. right? And so the tea may be caffeinated, but tea also has a more relaxed sensibility about it. So it is kind of a conundrum, right? So you just want to be careful for those situations where your regular claims might not intuitively fit.
Yeah. The viewer that asked the question said, it sounds like we interpreted his question correctly, because I just got a note from him that says correct. So the same viewer is also saying, does the pot leaf resonate with older consumers, or should that be avoided? So I can say, based on my older boomer parents, they certainly have a stereotype in regards to, they think everything is marijuana, everything has psychoactive ingredients. Of course, that's a stereotype. They're not breaking down the understanding of there's so many different sectors within that industry. I think that's where the question is going. So can you speak to that a little bit in regards to how do you address those consumers and help them understand the benefits differently based on the stereotypes or the background thinking that some of these, woodstockers had back in the 60s, and what their impression was of what it was about then and what it's about today?
Sure. Well, as we mentioned, consumers do generally believe that they understand CBD, hemp CBD, let's talk about it that way. Hemp CBD is very differentiated from cannabis, which contains THC. I think one way to help older consumers who may still hearken to that Woodstock culture, as you mentioned, is to specifically call out that the product does not contain THC, right? To help separate it even further from the psychoactive properties and make it clear that there should be no psychoactive effect. When we had consumers looking at packaging and we talked to them about the pot leaf specifically, I think it's all in how you use it and how you present it. If your reference of it is hearkening back to that drug culture, right? When you use a tie-dye approach, or when you use other iconography that may be suggestive of psychoactive effects, I think it really harms your credibility and it harms your product because it creates consumer confusion, right? This is a product that is meant not to be psychoactive, so why would you lean into that mindset? However, we have seen brands show the cannabis leaf, the pot leaf, if you will, very effectively when they show it in a very natural way, show its rich greenness, all of those properties that hearken to health and wellness through nature, right? Because that's what it is. It's a natural solution to potentially a prescription medication. So when you lean into that aspect, its naturalness, then it can be seen as a very positive way to differentiate. This is a CBD product.
Tim is asking, can you provide your thoughts on when the FDA will fully engage in the certification of CBD products? I know that's a loaded question.
Boy, I wish I could. I don't know that anybody knows that answer, and certainly now with coronavirus in place, I think a lot of our collective attention has been shifted a little bit, right? I would like to believe they're going to tackle this issue sooner rather than later and bring some clarity, but when that will be, I don't think we can say. There's certainly a lot of consumer pressure. They have seen that consumers are very heavily using this ingredient, so they should be motivated. I know they've been looking at the grass, and the generally regarded as safe labeling, but they haven't made that step yet. And so I wish I had a clear answer, but I would be speculating.
Well, Michelle, if you still have some time, we have a few more questions to get to.
Sure.
If you're okay. Justin is asking, there are a lot of different forms of CBD, from tinctures to editables to bombs. Do you know which forms consumers will prefer or are preferring?
Yeah, well, what we saw in our data was that a very common point of entry was to take a tincture product to start. But then we definitely could see that after that initial trial occasion, many consumers, particularly younger consumers, were pretty quickly moving on to edibles and to balms and other ways to access the ingredient. So I do think that there's plenty of opportunity to innovate in the forms arena. What I have been reading in the media is that, edibles, certainly as we begin to think about respiratory concerns, which are very topical right now, forms that might, such as vape, which might require or have an impact on the respiratory system, may not be quite as popular. So what I have been hearing is that more consumers are looking for solutions that don't require that.
Beth is asking, what do you see as opportunities in the market right now for innovations with CBD?
I think it's still such a new category. I think there's lots of opportunity for innovation, but one of the things we've been talking about that I think could be interesting is, what is our life post-COVID going to look like, right? All of us in marketing are asking those questions about our business. But one of the things I've been paying attention to is the rate of pet adoptions happening in this country, right? Now we know that
Right.
CBD has some pet applications, and particularly around anxiety. And when you think forward, a lot of people are saying pets are now becoming conditioned to 100% full-time adult attention, right? They always have their owner with them. What happens when we go all back to work? We could predict, right, that pets are going to go through a crisis and may need that kind of a solution, right? So I'm a fan of what's going to happen. Let's think about what are consumers going to need that's new in the next 9 months, and I think that's one example.
It's interesting. You can see the memes on Facebook where pets don't want to go out for a walk, and their owners want to go out for a walk every day because they're home every day, and the pets are getting tired of it. So maybe that will give them a break. We'll wait and see.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We have time for one more question. Tim is asking, do you agree that most big box retailers are waiting on the FDA certification before stocking wide ranges of CBD products across all stores?
I think many retailers are being cautious, but there are some great examples of of retailers that are taking that step. I think the ones who are doing it fairly conservatively. Oftentimes, having a CBD set specifically that transcends all categories. But there are progressive retailers who are making forays into the space, and I think there is opportunity there. The consumer is looking for both from we talked about trust, but also simply from a convenience standpoint, right? To be able to access these products.
Well, inside the GMDC ecosystem, some of our retailers, I think, are being conservative, but when they are setting up end caps or outposts and that type of thing, it's flying off the shelves, but they still don't know what to do with it. And, I think it depends on the region as well. What part of the country are they selling it in? There's higher adoption in some areas and skepticism in the other areas. So you're right. It is all over the map. And I think you would agree with me as well. It's still a little bit of the wild, wild west to some degree. And I think retailers are rightfully so being cautious about this, but they also should not hold back from experimenting with it if they can and do small runs with it.
I agree. And I think, you also as a retailer can think about how much is your own reputation built on the idea of health and wellness, right? And put that filter on. Does CBD from that standpoint seem like a good fit for you? And if you are a retailer that has a heavy emphasis on helping consumers with their health and wellness, then that makes it even more of a risk worth exploring.
Hey, Michelle, so I have a question for you as the host, if that's okay. And it goes back to, as I hear some of our retailers let us in on some of what they're doing with the CBD products. And as I mentioned, they're outposts but it's always segregated. When do we see, and have you seen CBD products where they're integrated really into the mix? They're across the entire aisle, or they're actually in a category with other products, and it's not just a separate CBD section. Do you see that taking place now, and when do you think you'll see more adoption of that?
I haven't seen it yet, but as I have thought about it, I liken it a lot to the explosive growth of, say, gluten-free, right? 10 years ago, gluten-free was in its own small section. And then as consumer demands began to increase, more and more brands got engaged and involved, right? And then gluten-free stepped out of that confine and really became fully integrated into the store. So I think part of what will drive that is when more brands that are carried in conventional or traditional retailers are offering CBD as a product, right? Right now, it's a relatively small set with lesser known players. And so I think right now that's part of what causes it to be kind of an end cap type solution.
Sure. Well, Michelle, thanks again for your time today. We really appreciate the actionable insights that you've delivered to our members and our audience today.
Thank you very much, Mark. It was a pleasure.
If this is your first time experiencing a GMDC Infocast, I'd like to make sure that you're aware that this session and all previous Infocast events can be viewed on the Archive tab on gmdcconnect.org, along with a schedule to register for future Infocasts. Many more are coming, and we're starting to book through the summer already, so please stay tuned. I'd also encourage you to get involved with GMDC Retail tomorrow and become a member if you're not already. Today's Infocast is a small sample of what members have access to. GMDC is a nonprofit retail-owned association that helps connect people and companies to opportunities for growth in the general merchandise, health, beauty, wellness, and self-care industries. For more information, please contact me at markm@gmdc.org. I'd love to help you find opportunities to get your company exposed to the high-profile executives and decision makers that can truly change your business. Thanks for joining us today. We hope the rest of your week is as productive as this hour has been. Thanks a lot. Take care.